Sorry, who wanted to be a jellyfish? Now you have your chance. It's what you've always been dreaming about. Thank you for joining our experiment this afternoon as we dive into the bioluminescent playground of the Miralab. Miralab is a 3D PC downloadable game built in Unity about discovering an underwater world as an immortal jellyfish. More about the immortal jellyfish in a moment. And you solve puzzles related to the ecosystem. There you go. You solve puzzles, and at the same time, you are shifting and morphing through the unique life cycle of the immortal jellyfish. So just a moment about the immortal jellyfish. It is a being that starts as an embryo blob, grows to be a full adult, and then reverses back to an embryo. Sometimes it's called the Benjamin Button jellyfish for that reason. And so that really, really inspired our design of this game. In the beginning, everything was dark primordial ooze. Then, in a land far away, below a mysterious island atoll off of Japan, an embryonic, immortal jellyfish blob appeared. This immortal jellyfish, otherwise known as Turritopsis doornhii, or Turry as we like to call him, favors the aesthetics of the early 1990s. And so I would say that Turry's favorite games are favorite movies are Tron and Finding Nemo. And Turry, as you just saw, he has been eating these food particles because jellyfish really like to eat. They pretty much do three things. They eat, they spawn, and they ride currents. And now that he has grown old enough, he is ready to evolve. And evolving is a very psychedelic experience. And now Turry is a full adult, and he is swimming through in a fissure in a coral reef. They watch him go. Go, Turry, go. So I'm Amanda Tassi, creative director and co-art lead. On the stage we have Laura Johanowitz, sound lead, Matt Kane, development director and lead designer, Brendan Labulio, our jellyfish driver, Kate Wong, our co-art lead, and our lead engineer is Brian DeVore. So we've also been working with the team, as have all the other teams, across multiple different schools. So we've had artists from LCAT, some graduates from MICO, which was my undergrad school in Baltimore, UCLA, and from the Berklee College of Music. Our composer is Oliver Lewin. So now Turry has encountered darkness. And another jellyfish. Throughout the game, you encounter other species of jellyfish. Sometimes they're mortal jellyfish. That one was a moon jellyfish. And those little jellyfish are friendly, and they will lead you to other parts of the game so that you can explore more. So the game is a combination of open exploration and puzzles, and the puzzles teach you more about the ecosystem. Here we have jumped into a current system, and currents are a primary way of moving faster through the game and finding new areas. As I mentioned, jellyfish really like to eat. And so here, Turry is feasting on blue food particles and turning blue. The immortal jellyfish in real life, its stomach turns blue also, so we use that as inspiration for the game. And later on, there are some puzzles related to color. You're also competing for other fish and animals throughout the world for food particles. And if you starve, then you don't die, but instead you reverse back to the blob embryo that we saw in the beginning. You can reverse to a blob at any point within the world. And there are two modes of gameplay, blob gameplay and adult jellyfish gameplay. So as you can see, one of our main design interests was in developing the feeling of a dynamic living ecosystem. We also worked with emergent systems. So actually that kelp in the background that you saw is growing before our eyes. Certain types of fish, like that needlefish that just swam by, really likes to eat the kelp. Those other little spotted fish like to eat these little pillow anemones. So I think Turi is doing pretty well. He's pretty green. He's probably going to maintain his vitality for a while, so now he'll go explore the kelp forest a little bit more. And I want to tell you a little bit about our sound system. So Laura, our sound lead here, worked with the FMOD system to develop a really dynamic approach to sound. So each actor and interactive element within the game has its own musical sounds associated with it, and these morph and change depending on how many of them there are and how far away the main player character Turi is. We also have underlying sound effects and musical ambience for each area. And throughout development, we realized that on top of that, we wanted to give more emotion to the game and a little bit more narrative. So our composer, Oliver Lewin, developed musical cues and narratives that we'll hear later on in the game. We also spent quite a bit of time iterating on how can we give this great underwater feel and atmosphere that we wanted to achieve. And so we did a lot of customization in Unity to develop unique shaders to make this happen. And we worked with two great graphics engineers, Rob Day and Sam Mazer. At this point, I think we are ready to move to another part of the game. So we look for our current system. It's actually a sea sponge, and we'll fly through it. I have been calling our aesthetic aquatic retrofuturism, which, if you don't already know it, is the way of the future. Now Turi is ready to swim right into a jellyfish current highway. Turi also likes Joy Division. This is not Joy Division, but he's inspired by it. So as Turi swims over this map, an important thing to note is that we are throwing the player right into this open ecosystem in the beginning of the game to give them an introduction. And later on in level 2, you will actually interact more with this map, so more at the ground level and solve puzzles within that world. But right now, you're just getting your first taste as we swim over. And each object within this world was inspired by real-world science. We worked with a great team of science advisors and one of only a handful of immortal jellyfish experts in the world. We took a field trip to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is an amazing place. And we also met with and showed our game to Mike Schott, the director of the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium. That's a brain coral over there. And now Turi is heading to his home base, the Palace of Immortal Jellyfish. So player progression is represented within the hub. Between each level, you return to the hub, and more things have grown and emerged in that hub. But right now, we're just being pulled through a vortex deeper into the ocean and loading level 1. So as you can see, we went for a different feeling in the middle of the game. This area is more claustrophobic, tranquil, and now we've entered into puzzle mode. So this is where we teach player, through participating in puzzles, exactly how the ecosystem works so that later on in the game they just have more information to guide their gameplay. So this is our first puzzle. Let's see how Turi approaches it. So as you can see, these boxfish also are in love with glowing red food particles, and that makes them swim out of their holes, and then we can pass through the gate that they've been hiding in. So one of the things we're teaching here is just how a lure can work within the game. So this area combines puzzles with open exploration. So in some of the transition rooms within the game, this is more similar to our level 2. You have both. And for example, if Turi were to follow the needlefish to your right, then the needlefish will lead him to a secret room and also a puzzle which will unlock yet another secret room within the game. We have 30 to 40 minutes of content, which we hope that you will check out on the demo room floor, but we don't have time to show you that secret room today, so I'd encourage you to check that out later. One of the reasons why One of the reasons why we have these different rooms is because we really want to encourage and reward the player for their exploration and provide additional content to do so. And within those secret rooms, the player is also unlocking other immortal jellyfishes, which helps to build up their colony. Now Terry's ready to move on. And we've entered a second main puzzle. This time we've added currents into the equation. Terry's gonna do the usual swim towards the current, and as you see, Terry is being blocked by that current. This current is way too strong for him to pass. So he's gotta take a different strategy. What will Terry do? Okay, so as these boxfish swim out of their hiding place, they've actually released a current, so these boxfish act as blocking fish. Knowing this, we might be able to have them help out with the current on the other side. And Terry can also communicate to make these little... Yeah, so what that is Terry has just sent a 360-degree sonar pulse out into the world, and depending on what he touches, it has an effect on it. And it changes, but depending on the actor. In this case, he has activated some pillow anemones. These little boxfish are being very sweet, and they are doing as Terry wants, so that's a good thing. But look, some of them are mischievous and did not go over to the current. One of the things that was really important for us also throughout the game design process was, as I mentioned, for everything to be inspired by science. We see it as a new approach to education that takes a more light and playful approach. So we want to inspire curiosity about the themes, curiosity about marine biology, about ecosystems, about the immortal jellyfish. My plan is to, on the website, provide more of the science. So rather than presenting the science literally within the game, in a more edutainment sort of perspective, we wanted first and foremost to create a fun, playful, evocative game with a great atmosphere, and then to hopefully sneak some science in so that people will be curious to want to learn more on their own. It was also really fun to have that inspire the design process. And those little boxfish have successfully diverted the current, and now we will dive even further deeper into the ocean in a dark vortex. So far, all of these different characters that we have interacted with have been relatively friendly, but as you and I all know, an ecosystem is not always friendly. And as you can see, it's also starting to appear aesthetically a little bit more ominous, so we'll see what happens. So it's always a nice feeling when you see a current that you can take a ride on. And we've got some familiar boxfish, some food in case we need it. But who the hell is that? It appears that we have just been stung by an electric eel, and we are reverting back to an embryonic blob. He didn't completely eat us, so we're still okay. So we can actually solve this puzzle in blob mode or in adult mode. As a blob, you're this microscopic little thing, so one strategy might be to just sneak away and then turn into an adult. Or you could turn into an adult and lure some fish over, try that, but those fish have been really nice to us. They're our friends, so I don't know if we want to do that. So as I mentioned before, at any point within the game, you could revert to a blob. One of the other things that you can do as a blob is that's the time at which you're growing polyps, which later turn into immortal jellyfish. But at this point, it does take a little while to solve this eel puzzle, so we are going to jump ahead to our level 2. And as I mentioned, level 2 combines open exploration with puzzles. And this is the same world that we swam over before. So right now in level 2, we actually have 7 embedded puzzles. And again, the idea here is that they're teaching us further how the ecosystem works, and those will inform and guide our exploration. So right now, Turi is looking a little hungry, so maybe he will eat. And of course, communicate makes that a little easier. Level 2 also has a few more predators, a shark, a box jellyfish. So Turi's now blue, and he wants to head over to some predatory sun coral that you see right there. And because he's the same color as them, they're not really paying that much attention to him and noticing him, so he can pass by them. And he wants to help get this other jellyfish out of there. All right. That jellyfish swam away. Turi's pretty happy with himself. But now Turi seems to have a craving for some yellow food particles. And just to show you what happens, as he heads back over to the sun coral, and now he's yellow, they're not so happy about seeing him, and they attack him. The sun coral didn't actually eat him, so he's going to revert back to a blob. And at this point, as we watch Turi start to evolve again, we can end our demo there. And like I mentioned, I would love to encourage you to come play and explore more of the world, find some hidden areas, learn more about the ecosystem, solve some puzzles. I'd like to invite the team Miralab to come up to the stage. Teaching assistants, the professors, our science advisors, artists, everybody. You know, this has been an incredible collaborative experience. I know I personally learned a ton, and I'm sure you guys all did too. Yay!